Hi, I'm Corwin, and this is a 1965 Cadillac Calais. I spent a lot of years fixing and driving this car with my grandfather. It was his, but ultimately it sat in the garage since about 2017. And so recently I towed it home and brought it into my garage, where now it sits for me. Okay, so originally this car had a 429, which made about 350 horsepower with a 3-speed automatic. Great for cruising around town, but the oil impellers inside the housing gave out, quit making oil pressure. So this motor is a year one crate motor, Chevrolet 350 late model. Makes about 400 horse, 400 torque, made it up to a turbo 400, which is great for cruising around town. Sitting on top, we got a 650 Summit, perfect for what I needed to do. Works great. I mean, this car weighs about 4,000 pounds, so anything to get it down the road really is just fine. So the driver's window is really what crippled this car. The motor went out in the door, and there was a lot of attempts to get it fixed, and ultimately what it took was, for me, I had to track down all the original pieces that go inside the door itself, the tracks, the motors, all the fittings, and get those pieced together and back in the car, which is easier said than done, especially for a 60-year-old car. So it mostly works now. You can see there's a little bit of gap around the edges. I kind of need to do a couple more fine tweaks to that, but pulling the door panel back off and doing that sounds awful. So for now, it's fine to just rinse off and drive around. So this car was originally white. My grandfather, Bobby, he had it painted blue, which is, to me, is perfect. Like, it matches the interior to a T, which came that same color. So it is a little dirty in here, but the interior is absolutely massive. This front seat is 6-way electronic, which for the time was super fancy, as you can imagine. Of course, the floor shifter is aftermarket, but that's because the steering column is aftermarket, with a Moon Eye steering wheel here, which I love, with the sparkle. You can imagine mating up an aftermarket column shifter to a low production Cadillac. It's not the easiest thing in the world, so this is fine. It works great. No seat belts in the back, of course, because who needs them? Okay, so what all have I done so far? There's a fuel leak, so I replaced all the lines with Dash 6 braided, put in a new sending unit, new pump, filter, ran that up into a new Holley regulator, and then over to the carb. Along with that, I ran relays to the fuel pump, which I need to kind of fix some of that wiring, but it works for now. But it's triggered off of oil pressure, so the fuel pump doesn't run unless it sees at least 5 pounds of oil pressure, which is great. And then I went ahead and stuck a relay in for the fan too, so it kicks on at 160, which is what year one recommends. So I replaced a ton of rubber, a ton of hose, lines, the window molding, all sorts of stuff. Really, you know, it's a 60-year-old car to begin with, plus it sat around for 4 years, so all that stuff just kind of gave out. I also installed these new gauges just to keep an eye on everything, make sure everything's staying nice and cool. So general maintenance stuff, battery, oil, coolant. I got some spark plugs and some spark plug wires on order, so I'll get those soon. But the next biggest thing, the steering was super loose. It was seesawing back and forth across the road. And as you can see, I've got all this stuff waiting to go back in. But as I was taking off the passenger side, the spring broke my finger. So kind of on hold for the moment until I get enough flexibility back in my finger to put all the parts back on. So in case you're wondering if I know what I'm doing, the answer is obviously no. So be careful around those springs. They are rather big. Also, the tie rod on the driver's side that connects to the drag link, I guess it was rubbing against the pan. You can see that here, it started leaking oil. And so as I kind of started to investigate, I found this huge gouge in the pan, which this is a Nova pan, and so it's really the only thing available off the shelf that fits kind of that center steering. So shout out to Kevco Racing. Been working with Josh over there. They're gonna make me a custom pan to fit this car specifically. I sent him a bunch of measurements and took a bunch of pictures, so that'll go back on as soon as it gets here. And really, that's about it. So, I mean, it's an old car. Every time I fix something, it's like I find something else that's broken and that needs replacing. So, I love this stuff. I love doing it. I'm not complaining. I just want to get it back up and driving. Like, I want to have all the memories that I had with my grandfather, with, you know, my kids or my grandkids or anybody down the line. And even just a couple of times we've gotten to take it out, it's a blast. You know, you get waves, you get honks and thumbs up, and it's just, the culture is great. So I just want to get it back on the road, and the car deserves it. So if you have any questions, let me know. It's tough. These cars are, there's not a lot of them out there, so it's hard to find information. The forums online are great, but they're just sparse. Like, there's just not a lot to it. So it's hot rodding, you know, you got to make it work. And if you can't make it work, you got to try the next best thing. So it's a lot of fun, but next up is this huge mess of steering components. So those got to go back in. So look forward to that in the next one.